What's up, fam? So, President Donald Trump is looking to bring a statue of Christopher Columbus to the White House. Now, we all know in school we were told about him discovering America with somehow Indians already being here on this great land. And we had to give a side eye at that. But as time went on, the truth just came out about the person that he was, what he actually did, and what he was all about. But yet, still, people like Donald Trump want to call this tyrant a hero. Well, you know what? I want to get into this news clip here that talks about Donald Trump bringing or taking, because he's not bringing, I don't live in DC, taking Christopher Columbus statue up to the White House. And then, I'm going to give my take. And as usual, I want you guys to give your take in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, hit the notification bell so every time I drop a video, you will be the first to know about it. I got these two gentlemen here, and the reason why I chose these guys is because I want y'all to hear what them other folks say about this. I want to kind of give like a different perspective, give everybody equal opportunity to speak on why they are for and against, not just us, because that's the problem. We only listen to us and people who claim to like us, but really don't like us. They just know that we like to think that somebody like us. So I want to listen to the people that don't like us, who are not going to be pulling the wool over our eyes as they talk. Let's hit it.
President Trump is reportedly planning to install a statue of Christopher Columbus on White House grounds. How about that? No anti-Italian discrimination here.
I was going to say, if people are not aware, you're proud Italian American.
Proud Italian heritage here.
People familiar with the matter informed the Washington Post that the piece is a reconstruction of a statue unveiled in Baltimore by then President Ronald Reagan. In 2020, protesters discarded the statue in the city's harbor after nationwide racial justice demonstrations.
But a group of
Was
Italian
that due to George Floyd?
businessmen and politicians worked together to obtain the destroyed pieces and rebuilt the statue. John Pica, a Maryland lobbyist and president of the Italian American organization, told the Associated Press that he was contacted about the statue around Columbus Day last year by an intermediary who said the White House was looking for a statue. Pica says his organization unanimously decided to loan this statue to the White House.
Bill Martin, another Italian-American businessman, told the Post that the statue is expected to be transferred from a warehouse on Maryland's eastern shore to the Trump administration in coming weeks.
A White House spokesperson, Davis
It must be a big statue.
said in a statement, "In this White House, Christopher Columbus is a hero, and he will be honored as such by President Trump." A little bit of
I'm gonna let y'all look at this evil tyrant while I say my little spiel. The only reason I feel, besides the obvious skin issues, that I feel that Donald Trump is calling Christopher Columbus a hero is political. He just want to destroy everything Joe Biden and Barack Obama put into place in their tenures in the White House. Period, point blank. That's the thing that I see with all politicians. It does not matter if what a person did made sense, if it was right or if it was wrong. If it was done by an opposite party, it's your job to go against it, even if it makes no sense. Like Joe Biden took out Christopher Columbus Day, and rightfully so, and put in Indigenous People Day because of the mess that this monster did. But Donald Trump come back in and said, "Oh no, we're gonna bring back Christopher Columbus Day, and we're gonna put a statue at the White House because he discovered America," which I don't even think he made it to the what we call the United States. Anywho, but anyway,
quoting of Tony Soprano there, I think, from the famous meme. Christopher Columbus has elicited different feelings, obviously, depending on which side of the political aisle you're on, like President Trump supporting the traditional perspective of Christopher Columbus as a pioneer of the 1492 voyages to the Americas.
However, in recent years, some have viewed the Italian explorer with a much more critical lens for setting the stage for European conquest of the Americas and subsequent enslavement of indigenous populations. Some US states do now recognize Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day, and former President Joe Biden in 2020 became the first president to mark the holiday.
Good work.
As well, we can have a whole discussion about Indigenous Peoples Day. As an Italian American, are you thrilled that Christopher?
Indigenous Peoples Day.
I'm all in favor of Indigenous Peoples Day.
I don't need, you know what, to be perfectly honest, I don't think anybody needs a day anymore. I think we've doled out the days a little too judiciously.
Funny that he says that. Funny you say that when people start taking away from your people. Now you want to say, you know what? We don't need holidays anyway. We got too many holidays as it is. They come out and try to make Juneteenth a holiday, a national holiday. Now, this is already a holiday down here in the great state of Texas. Okay. We don't need nobody. We didn't need the government's permission. We need the president. We didn't need nobody's permission. We need the Pope's permission to celebrate, Juneteenth down here. But then Joe Biden thought he was doing us a favor, I guess. I don't know, trying to make it look good so he can get some votes. It made Juneteenth a national holiday, so now it's commercialized, it's watered down. You got people all over the country on Juneteenth twerking on top of Burger Kings and on top of people's cars, just ruining the day. And it's like, why we just couldn't keep it in Texas? Because that's what it was all about. But then you get that day, and now they're saying, we got too many holidays, so we need to take some of them away. We're going to take away Juneteenth as a national holiday. You can't go to a national park on Martin Luther King Jr. birthday. Stuff like, things like that. But yet, Donald Trump is the least racist president that we've had in a long time.
But how
Not
will you, how,
judiciously enough, I should say.
how will you go back to your Italian American forebears and justify the
I'd be
scrubbing
fine
of
with-
Columbus Day as
I'd be
well as
fine with
Indigenous
no
Peoples
Columbus
Day?
Day and no Indigenous Peoples Day and no any day, and we should just stop with the days.
Are you happy about this Columbus statue then? You're thrilled. You're going to be waving
I'm
your
joking.
little Italian
I honestly
flag.
don't care that much. I think it's fun. The history of Columbus Day, of course, is it was a giveaway to, at the time, an important urban identity group, Italian Americans.
Yes.
It's interesting how identity politics shift in such a. I've talked about this a lot on Rising. The conception of white people as one homogenous group, that it's not really an identity group, that all other identity groups are positioned against. A group that includes your people and my people is very funny, because 100 years ago, Irish people and Italian people and German people and the people who came over on the Mayflower did not consider themselves all part of some broader white race.
Think about what he just said and put it in context of Black Americans. Now we are talking big about delineation. God, I can't say it. To delineate from other Black cultures like Africans, Caribbeans, what have you. And we say that because anytime something bad happens, they want to call themselves Black. Well, anytime something good happens, now this Nigerian American, this Caribbean American, this Ghanaian American, wherever their roots are from in the past, wherever they was born in or wherever their parents were born in, whatever, that's what they'll claim. But we're trying to say, okay, if that's the case, but when we need some help, we're trying to do things for Black people, now it's like, oh no, you Black Americans, you're on your own. Okay. So, now see, we got to separate ourselves from y'all because y'all don't see the bigger picture. But think about what he just said. 100 years ago, all these different groups of light-skinned people, pale-skinned people were separate. Italians, what did he say? German. What does he say? God, I can't think that quick. But anyway, they were different ethnicities, and they was proud to claim it, the different ethnic groups. But now, when you look at it, we all see them as white. So what he's telling us is 100 years from now, when they look at us, we're all going to be seen, unless you like first generation. But by that time, it's going to like 100 years from now, especially if Donald Trump or any other president slow down the immigration of black people from across the world, from the diaspora. 100 years from now, we're all going to be called Black Americans. Think about that for a minute. While we out here trying to get reparations, all they got to do is just wait it out. Everybody else but our people know how to play as a collective, know how to play the long game.
I think it's always important to keep in mind that this is a very recent invention, this idea of like whiteness as this superseding organization. That's not how my ancestors saw it.
Well, it's not. I mean, certainly there was a whole big, I mean,
Irish.
there were like absolute battles between those white ethnic groups. But as history has developed, we don't have time to get into all that. But there's there's a book written, How the Irish Became White, which is all about a rather inglorious history of basically discriminating against black people to prove your mainstream here among white American society.
It's interesting to see it with Latinos.
Yeah.
Many Latinos identify as, well, they have that white Hispanic designation now that's, say, second, third generation. Many of them just think of themselves as white.
I know. It has become a very, very different thing. Up next, I will...
Amazing. So, yeah, Donald Trump trying to put a statue of Christopher Columbus at the White House, calling him a hero. But I'm not going to end on that note. I got to give you some facts, bring you some research information before we get up off of this video. So let's hit it. Christopher Columbus is often remembered as the man who discovered America, but that story leaves out the most important details. In 1492, Christopher Columbus didn't set out to prove the earth was round. Educated people already knew that. He wasn't chasing science. He was chasing money, power, and titles. He was an immigrant, huh? Whatever. Columbus believed he could reach Asia by sailing west. I learned that back in grade school. What was the problem? He was wrong about the size of the earth. He underestimated the distance by thousands of miles. And if the Americas hadn't been in the way, the voyage would have likely ended in disaster. After years of rejection, Spain finally funded him, not out of curiosity, but competition. Spain wanted wealth, territory, and Christian expansion to rival Portugal. Columbus set sail with 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Nina, and the Pinta, and about 90 desperate men. They say these men were like, a lot of them were poor, some of them were criminals, which when you talk about the word immigrant, that's the one thing that people fail to understand. Because people like to say, immigrants built the country. Okay, everybody who came over here, whatever, built the country, did something to help build the country to where it is now. I get it. But you can't call slaves immigrants because they didn't choose. If you want to believe that millions of Africans were brought over here and not believe that there were already tons of people of my color or darker already here, if you don't want to believe that, then fine. But if you want to believe, regardless, they didn't come over here all willy-nilly and at their will. They were forced over here. So you can't call my people, those who were enslaved, my ancestors that was enslaved, regardless of where they were from, you can't call them immigrants. You just can't do it because the natives of this land, or the people brought over here to this land, they created this country and they were not immigrants at all. And so on October 12, 1492, land appeared. They hadn't reached Asia. They had landed in what we now call the Bahamas among the Taino people. So he didn't even make it to what we call the United States. The Taino were peaceful, generous, and unarmed. Columbus described them as friendly and then immediately wrote something chilling that they will make good servants. So, right there, that tells you immediately that your slaves were already over here. That belief that they went and got Africans and brought millions of Africans over here on them little ships, and not that many died, and somehow millions made it across that voyage. Really? You can't find, you probably, what they find like one boat. But they used to say when they used to get done sailing, they would tear the boats down and use it for kindling. So I believe that. But this right here tells you Christopher Columbus used the dark skinned people who are already over here as slave laborers. From the very first encounter, colonization, not cooperation, was the goal. Columbus kidnapped indigenous people, forced them to guide him, and claimed their land for Spain. When he failed to find large amounts of gold, violence escalated. People were enslaved, mutilated, and killed. Entire communities were terrorized to extract wealth that barely existed. That's the thing about money. When you ain't got nothing, you cool. If you don't know you got anything, when you live off the land, that's good enough. But when folks start putting value on precious metals, on oil, things of that nature, furs, now you got to, when they put money behind it, that's when you start getting problems. When somebody say, hey, I got these gold chains or wearing these fur coats, you know what I'm saying? You can't afford them. Now that becomes a problem because now people going to want that. On Christmas Day, 1492, Columbus's flagship crashed. Using the wreckage he built, the La Navidad, the first, is that Christmas? Feliz Navidad? Amazing. The first European fort in the Americas, and left armed men behind. When Columbus returned to Spain in 1493, he was celebrated as a hero. He was a hero to Spain, not to the white folk. He brought captives, gold trinkets, and exotic animals and promised far more riches than he had actually found. Those promises earned him more voyages and more power. As governor, Columbus ruled with such brutality that even Spanish officials accused him of torture, mass executions, and extreme cruelty. Eventually, he was arrested and sent back to Spain in chains. I guess he was a governor of Hispaniola. And while Columbus never accepted that he had found a new continent, the consequences were unmistakable. This dude still believed to the day he died that he landed on Asia. Within decades, the Taino population collapsed through violence, forced labor, and disease, nearly wiped out entirely. Kind of like the Native Americans of the United States country. So no, Christopher Columbus did not discover America. People had lived there for thousands of years. What he did was bring permanent European colonization, setting off a chain of events that reshaped the world at an enormous human cost. That's the story that rarely makes it in the textbooks. And again, like old dude was saying a while ago, 100 years ago, different white ethnic groups did not claim each other. They stayed separate. So you think about when we think about Spain, we think about Spanish people speaking Spanish, this, that, and the third. We don't really think about European like that. When we think about Europe, we think about European white people. So amazing, hundreds of years later, who's taking credit for discovering America? That's all I'm saying. But anyway, your president, it is what it is. You know what country you live in, so don't be surprised. Just keep doing what you got to do to uh, build your legacy. Hell, build your own. Well, you're not even supposed to build statues to, you know, to praise or to worship anybody anyway. So let them have their own statues. They can continue to live demonic, and you keep doing what you're supposed to do in the name of the Most High. But anyway, tell me what you think about this story. Leave your comments below. Share it with the world. Let's have an intelligent conversation. You know how we do around here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Those 4 things cost you maybe a couple of minutes out of your day, but it means the world to us at this channel. And with that being said, leave in peace and love, and I'll see you on the other side.